as, you know, the study of stamps, but also includes a lot about postal history, you know, birthday covers and special postmarks. It's really all encompassing. Like if you were to go to a stamp show, what you would see there is what I'm basically defining as philately. But there's a lot, I think there's a lot of area to bring in people who have interests who might not have once considered philately, people who do stamp art and mail art, and people who do postcard swapping. And that sort of actually leads to one of the things that I talk about in my article is the chain cards. So chain cards is a new hobby that basically you send a card, you form a group of about 4 to 5 people. It's usually based on a theme. And those people have to have about 2 stamps per person, depending on the size of the stamp. And you lay this card out, and I can show you, I have some visuals for that I can show.
Yeah, please do. You can share
Yeah,
your
and
screen.
so let me go ahead and share that. So just let me know if you can see my screen yet.
Not yet.
Yes, I can see.
Hold on, sorry. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for chain cards here, this is how you would lay a chain card out basically before you sent it to go around the world. And so for this chain card, the theme was the crocus flower. And so I had one stamp from the US I was using. And then there was Russia, the Netherlands, and Belgium. And so everybody shares their size of their stamps. And you take a postcard, usually the postcard has the same theme on the front, you know, whatever, you know, it's up to you to find that and decide what you want to use. And based on the size of the stamps, you lay out your card and you mark it up. So this was how I laid it out. I cut out pieces of paper that were the same sizes as the stamps. And you just arrange them however will fit, however you like. And then you mark it actually on the card in pencil. Once you do that, you cover the area up, and to send it. So in the chain, I will always send to one country. So for this chain, I sent to Russia, Russia sent to Belgium, Belgium sent to the Netherlands. And that chain always stays the same. It never varies. So I would get Belgium's card, and then I would put my stamp on it and send it to Russia. And then Russia would get their card and send it on to the Netherlands. So in order to send it through the mail, what we do is you basically cover up the area that you've marked. You add any extra postage that you need, and then you write the address, which I've just blurred out for privacy purposes, but you write the address on this. And this is adhered with, this is using washi tape, but you use a tape that can be easily removed from paper. You never put the tape on top of a stamp. There are people who have done that, and it's kind of a big chain card no-no, because you don't want to obviously damage the stamp. And so then I would take this to a post office, get it postmarked, and they would send it on. And so by the end, you end up getting a completed chain card, which looks something like this. So this one here, the theme was pansies. And so you can see there are the US stamps, there are stamps from Belgium, and there are stamps from, some people here I think used stamps already. So there's a lot of different countries, and then Japan. So with chain cards, there are some people who are very strict about how they do it in the process, and some people who just are a little bit more lenient. Their only end goal is to have a nice looking card at the end with a collection of stamps. Some people really want the stamps to come from country of origin and be postmarked freshly. So they request that you use unused stamps and have it postmarked, and then it will go through. But it really just depends on who's hosting the chain card, and either you can participate or you can't based on what the host sort of outlines as what their preference is. So this one was pansies. This one was a little bit more of a flexible theme. This one was purple and green. So do you have stamps that are purple and do you have stamps that are green? And then you share them and it goes around the world. So this one actually had 2 members from the US. So you'll see 4 stamps that are US stamps. And then this one was a harder theme to do. This one was snow globes.
Mhm.
And so for this one, I wasn't able to find any US stamps for snow globes, so I actually used international stamps, and the host was fine with that. So these are just some samples. I've done over 50 of these now. And sometimes they travel quickly depending on the country. Sometimes it'll take 6 months to a year to get them back.
So question, and I hope that some people will want to participate in this discussion. Please let me know if you do. Is this philately? Is this stamp collecting? I'm sure that there are some people who would feel that it is collecting, or maybe there would be some who are in the room who believe otherwise. Is there anyone who would like to speak about that topic right now? Did I see Tom Bowman waving? Okay, hold on a second, Tom. Tom Bowman, you're live.
Yeah, Stacy, have you ever heard of post-crossing?
Yes, I do. I do a little bit of that myself too.
Okay, because that's a way some people collect postcards, but what I do is when I get a postcard, I'm reaching behind me because I have some here. You know, this one came from Thailand. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
What I do, I have a guy who will soak the stamps off if I don't want the card or somebody doesn't want the card.
Yeah.
That way he gets modern stamps that aren't in Scott that he puts away and uses later.
And that's actually how I got into doing some postcard swapping, because I wanted to see stamps from around the world, and it was an easy way to see and kind of collect stamps from around the world. Now I keep my postcards intact, but I just liked seeing the stamps that were all around the world that I may not have seen otherwise.
No, I agree with you, but some cards, like my wife collects certain things, I collect certain things, friends of mine, so I give them to them. I have a doctor assistant that grew up in Russia. He takes those from me.
Yeah.
That way they can see what's going on and etc. That's how I share. I do a lot of sharing.
And those of us who are new to the hobby appreciate it, because I have somebody who shares a lot with me, and it's really, really nice. It's a nice way to see what's out there and to explore and to learn. So as somebody who gets things shared with a lot, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and one thing, you can get a postcard from APS, which I have used, and I send them to, when somebody says I collect stamps, I send them that card and only that card.
Oh,
And
neat.
it gets what they call a lot of favorites on post-crossings. So,
Nice.
That's neat. I'll have to do that.
it's a stamp store.
Thank you.
Stampstore.org, still open for business, although delayed in mailing right now while we're trying to figure out things with the governor's order.
Yeah, it's not in the store itself. It's under the shops, the shop area.
Right.
Okay,
right.
thank you.
I'm muting. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to unmute Rob and Debbie Hathaway. Had some comments about this.
This is my wife, who has never been in one of these meetings. She's usually sitting with her back turned to these meetings, and this.
I'm working.
She's the topicalist. I'm the generalist, but we are both philatelists.
Mm-hmm.
I teach stamp collecting to scouts for many years, and you make things as simple as possible. You reduce definitions to their bare minimum. If given a stamp, if you don't dispose of it, then you're a collector. If you do that twice, you have a collection. If you get a stamp and study it in any degree, you're a philatelist, because a philatelist is one who studies stamps. He doesn't even have to own them. My wife is a very, very skilled and knowledgeable topical philatelist.
Hello. No, I kind of totally agree with you. I'm sometimes surprised by the women that I speak with over social media who don't consider themselves philatelists, because almost immediately when I discovered how much I love stamps and that I would look into them and research about them, even if just a little bit, I immediately was like, I'm a philatelist. I never hesitated to consider myself that. And so it was really another one of the reasons this topic intrigued me so much, was to see what's going on and what's happening in this disconnect.
The trend, it's human nature, I suppose, but whenever I see exclusiveness or anything like that to minimize what someone else collects in the hobby, it's a disservice to the hobby.
I agree.
It is. I've experienced that as a topicalist, but I'm a librarian and I love the aspect of research. So
Yeah.
is what I enjoy doing, is finding out about the topic. And part of stamp collecting or philately, whatever you want to call it, I don't enjoy is the actual mounting them up and putting it in albums, which is married to him for 40 years and he does that part.
You can see all behind me.
Yeah. No, I do like the research. I tend to be a researcher. Just if something pops up and I'm like, oh, let me look at that. Let me research it. But I also like to organize. And so just the act of organizing my collection is very therapeutic for me. And it's not a large collection right now, so it's not hard to do. But I do very much enjoy both aspects of it a lot. So it's very nice to talk to you both.
Thank you. Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think about chain cards? Do you think would you consider that a form of philately?
Sure. I think your pansy card was really interesting. I like that one. I'd like to do one with orchids because I collect orchids. So I think orchids would be fantastic.
Oh,
Yes,
beautiful.
quite a lot of orchids. I'm currently collecting with a gift packet of Anne. And just all the flowers.
Beautiful. Yeah, flowers is a really popular theme for chain cards, flowers and birds, because there are so many stamps that it's an easier topic for some people to participate, and it's easier to get members to participate because there's so many available. Some are a little bit less strict in the theme, so it's not pansies or crocuses, it's pink flowers, or for people just starting out in the hobby, just flowers, as simple as flowers. I think the first 2 or 3 chain cards I did were just a simple flower. It didn't have to be anything specific. Because I've been doing it now for over a year, I've gotten more specific in the themes that I do. So it's like, I'll do a purple flower theme, or like the snow globe theme was really a challenge because the snow globe stamps aren't super common even around the world. So I was really happy I got to join that one with non-US stamps.
Okay, let me get someone else involved in this. Richard Morell, you're unmuted, and go ahead.
Yeah, and I one of my roles was curator of the British Library's philatelic collections. I think the strength of the term philately, it should be used to describe all aspects of the hobby and subject in the widest possible sense. It's an umbrella term. It's an umbrella term to capture everything, and that's the source of the strength of it. If anything, some of the problems in recent years has been a degree of snobbery about what does and doesn't constitute philately. I think that that can be problematic in terms of making the hobby wider, and we should be able to define that in our own way, as long as people find it interesting, or engaging and studying the material, and hopefully collecting it as well. I think that's the key, and it's good to see. It's really good to see. Thank you for the talk.
Oh, thank you. I agree with you very much. And I think there's a lot of people, I think the trend is starting to lean that way, that, it really should be more all-encompassing. It should be a little bit more broad, because there is so much interest in so many different aspects and areas. So it's always nice to talk with people who sort of tend to agree with that it's important to keep the hobby alive. And if that means including things that might not once have been considered philately, then that's what it means. Mm-hmm.
So I had a question from someone who doesn't have a mic or a camera on their computer, Colin Clark. He is asking, does the term philatelist get in the way of local and national society membership recruitment. For instance, renaming our stamp show to the Great American Stamp Show for Hartford. Does the name of the Philatelic Society to Stamp Society, would that be something of outreach? I'm gonna also unmute our executive director, Scott English, to for his thoughts on this as well. So Scott, your mic is open. Do you have a thought about Colin's question?
So I'll start with talking about the stamp show real quick. It's gone through variation names, although really since 1977, the name Stamp Show has been what we call that show, because we've expanded it. The idea of bringing in additional organizations necessitated, I think, having a larger name for the umbrella of the event. That's, you know, with the American First Day Cover Society and the American Topical Association, although here we've brought together 3 organizations, and we have a global pandemic, which we haven't seen the likes of since 1918. So we may have to reconsider our strategy if that contributed in any way. Having said that, full disclosure, I'm not a stamp collector. So the first thing I had to do when I was interviewing for this job was to get a pronunciation, an oral pronunciation of philately and philatelist, so that I could repeat it again and again before I interviewed, and didn't look quite like a fool, and I didn't know what I was talking about with the organization. Back in 2015, I remember flying to State College and having to say philatelist and philatelic over and over again, and having my seatmate look at me like I had lost my mind. But I think it's an opportunity to open a conversation if that's possible. We have 2 types of collectors. I find some are the very welcoming. You know, when I wrote my first column in the magazine, I was contacted by a lot of different people who shared with me what they collect in in stamp form or in cover form, or encouraged me to collect a certain line because I had not committed myself to it. And then there's the others that are, I think, sometimes sort of sit and wait to see if you know what you're talking about or not. And so we encourage the outreach types, and I appreciate the stickler for details. But you know, it's really helpful to have that conversation about what philatelic means, what it represents. Stamps sort of, I don't think, covers the whole of what the hobby is about, because you do discount postal history and cover collecting and a variety of other ways that you can be a stamp collector, not simply just an album filler. So I like a philatelic, and it does give you a chance to engage someone to explain a little bit more about what it is you can collect. The diversity of the hobby is a strength for us, and being able to expose people to the various ways that you can be a stamp collector or a philatelist, I think helps bring more people to the hobby. There's a long answer to a short question. I apologize.
Richard Morell also has a comment about this. I'll unmute Richard's microphone. Go ahead, Richard. There you go. There you go.
Also, yeah, I can see the rationale about using the word stamp or stamp society, but the term stamp as well, there's a danger of narrowing. What about kind of pre-stamped material, postal history? You know, it's a very, we have to be careful when we change the name. We have to think about the widest possible. And it's a good thing about the term philately is in a way, especially not being an English language word in an Anglophone kind of society and world, it's kind of abstract enough to incorporate that material. But I mean, you know, there is a problem even with that term as well. It's something I've been kind of niggling about on and off for a few years, and haven't yet come up with a satisfactory answer. It's a difficult one.
Thank you, Richard. We have a question from Tambit Telvis. and I will unmute your microphone.
Yes, I got a question.
An adult, you can make that decision on whether or not you feel comfortable sharing your address with people you don't know. But I do think for as post-crossing and postcard swapping in particular, I think you kind of, there's sort of a line there where it's, you know, are their parents comfortable with them doing it or aren't they? That's just my own personal opinion. But I think, you know, that obviously if parents are okay with it, then, you know,
Right.
it's definitely, there's a conversation to be had, but I think that might be a harder conversation to have, you know, how to get young people involved. I know when you know, it's different when I was in elementary school and we set up pen pals, you know, it was all done through the educational system. So, you know, if that's the route to look at postcard swapping or getting postcards from around the world, you know, that kind of keeps everybody safe.
Great. Stacy, do you have anything else that you'd like to show us that might help the conversation go?
I mean, I have since we've been talking about postcard swapping, I do have some examples of the postcards that I decorate sometimes, or if you're trying to look to have fun, but you know, and some of when I send mail, I like to decorate the envelopes a little bit, but I mean, otherwise I think that's all, unless anybody has any questions.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we do. Have you ever considered yourself? I know that you're looking at non-traditional ways of collecting. Have you ever considered, you know, more of the traditional style, or is that just not something that interests you?
I tend to collect a little more traditionally. I really like seeing how other people collect, but I do I use stock sheets, and I have an album, and I even catalog my stamps so that if I'm ever away from my collection and I need to know if I have something I can look back at, you know, I can access it through Google Documents.
Right.
And I usually, you know, I organize them thematically. That's how I tend to structure it. And so I do the same thing for my first day covers, and the same things for my chain cards and my postcards. They're all organized in albums. And I still do albums. My dad's been a collector his whole life of various things. And he always laughs at me. He says, you can collect more if you just keep them in boxes. And I say, but then I can't look at them as easily. So as of now, I'm still collecting an album so I can flip through whenever I want to. Mm-hmm. But I tend to be a little bit more of a traditional collector.
What about the issue Scott brought up just now in a private chat? Young people are more active in philately than we think. Bringing them to organize philately is the challenge. Does anyone have any thoughts? Or Stacy, perhaps, do you have thoughts on how we get more younger people interested?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really kind of what I'm trying to do. I know I've sort of targeted women specifically, and there's a wide range of age groups with that. But I think just, you know, I think social media, I think a lot of young kids are posting on social media, and you do see some high schoolers and even young adults, you know, 18, 19, it's still in college or the college age. And I think connecting with them is a really good way to do that. But you really, you know, it's all about engagement. You know, comment if you see somebody posting about stamps or any kind of interest in mail and postal history, commenting and engaging and just getting the word out there. I think, you know, it kind of goes back to the discussion of, do you drop the term philatelist or philately, or does stamps, because stamps doesn't really encompass the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But if you're, you know, you're the APS, you're the American Philatelic Society, and you can connect with them on social media and engage. And when they see that, then like, oh, what's that? You know, I've never heard of this before. How can I be a part of it? And I think just making those connections is the first step.
Well, speaking of social media, let me bring in Heidi Rhodes, who's our marketing social media coordinator. Yeah, you're on camera.
Yay!
Why don't you talk about some of the things that you see and how you engage with our audience with social media?
Well, I want to talk with Stacy first. I love what you're doing. It's really important. Hi everybody who's been joining our Zoom chats. It's so wonderful to see our chats grow and people come, join us Monday through Friday. But, I too am new to philately. I'm one of these types, I find something and I get very excited and passionate in research and, I sound the drums. So what I've learned is on the 3 platforms, Twitter, Insta, and Facebook, very different audiences completely. So, when you were speaking, Stacy, about engaging with, as I call them, I'm in my 40s, so I call them the kids. When I'm on Insta, I'm playing with the kids, and they're doing such beautiful work, and it's great. If you live in my world, you don't even know what's going on, except for stamps. COVID, what is that? Because it's just kids continuing to send mail to each other, show beautiful stamps, and this is a range of people from 34 down to about 20 from all over the world too.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've noticed.
And so,
well, but social media isn't necessarily all about kids, right? I mean, we have a lot of people now who are very engaged on social media that are in my age group, the 60 plus and up. So how do you do that? You muted your microphone, or maybe I muted you. There you go.
You have to work all 3 channels. You just have to be diligent and meet your population where they're at. I've got a fair range on Facebook, and that's great. That you pay attention to the beat, you pay attention to the patterns, and you weave into the story. It's very much the way like Red Bull, that was part of their marketing, was really get down into the culture of those that they wanted to drink their products, so meeting everybody where they're at, on the different platforms. Yeah. And then, I've been thinking today, Stacy, there are the people who aren't on computers. And do I need to maybe I need to start to send them postcards, the original social media.
Yep. I know it's really, there's so many outlets. And like you said, you have to meet them where they're at, and you also, like you said, you've realized working in the industry, you've realized the trends. You see very different audiences from Twitter to Facebook to Instagram. And it's how can you tap into to the tools with each of those platforms.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so,
for instance, in this Zoom meeting, I'm just looking through who's attending, and there are several people who are attending, and they're just on the phone. They may not have a smartphone. They may not have a video capable computer. So, I mean, we have to be cognizant of them as well. And how do we reach out to people without those other means?
Yeah.
Hire a Gen Xer. We've been through it all.
Yes, we have, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It helps, because it's like I can think about it's like, all right, how am I going to get my family? Am I going to get them on the phone? Am I going to get them through a smoke signal? Am I going to get them through a tweet? So that's what we do, and we embrace that. That's the beauty of philately, is that we are global, and we're all about uniting. And there's so much creativity in the field.
Okay, so Rob has some things to show, and he is now back on with us. Rob.
Okay, when I was in 1964, when I would first started to call myself a stamp collector, there was interesting stamps in the mail, and today, this comes in. It's interesting. It's historical. It'll go into my album. Politicians telling me about the latest coronavirus update. But this is about the most exciting mail that would come in if I didn't have trading partners all over the world. things like post crossings and the chain cards are spectacular. In order to get kids interested in third grade, fourth grade, and up, whether they, it has to be in their hands. Every letter I mail out is graphically interesting. This is Murphy the Stamp Hound. He saved my stamp collection. This is the Murphy Lisa. I changed the cachet I typically use every year. This is painting a friend of ours did of Murphy. But you have to put interesting stamps on into every home is the very best way to get very young people interested. Whether it be pen friends or post crossings or chain cards, spectacular.
Chain cards.
Yeah. Whether they, we all know, at least half of the adult collectors, well, a very high percentage, the APS has published those numbers before, but they're not on the top of my head. A very high percentage of active collectors started as a young person. Maybe they went up to junior high and then other things. What is it, girls? Whatever. Get in the way. Life gets in the way. But then later in life, they have more time and come back to the hobby. That wasn't my pattern, but I certainly know many people where it was.
Oh, and I think you know, I think a lot of people are that way. I mean, I don't consider myself a true collector, but you know, I did when I was a kid. You know, started out collecting traditional ways, and have recently come back into the hobby with my my new position here. How do we re-engage some people? You know, not only boys, but girls and women and people of diverse backgrounds to join us in the hobby. And Stacy's touched on a couple of those things, I think.
Yeah, and I just speaking to the engaging kids. My niece is 8 years old, and she's already, you know, she started showing some interest in stamps, and we swap. I personally swap postcards and letters with her, and I always make sure there's interesting stamps. I buy her stamps for her birthday. I've given her old outfits that I'm not using, and it's just so great to see her enthusiasm. She opened up. I bought her. She loves cats. And so I bought her cat stamps and a bunch of cat postcards for her birthday, and she flipped out. She was so excited. And it's one of those things, you know, she's 8 now. And so, you know, she might give it up, but at some point, you know, she might come back to it, or she might never give it up, you know, as long as I'm around.
Right.
That's right, Stacy.
So I think, yeah, I think the idea, like, was said about sending, making sure what you send has interesting stamps on it. You know, we have somebody in our family who, she's not a stamp collector. She's, you know, probably, I think she's in her like 70s. She's a family friend. And anytime she sends us birthday cards, she puts stickers on the envelope. She makes sure she's using fun, current stamps. You know, it's just not what she can get at the grocery store, like you know, and yeah, and so it's so fun to get mail from her. And my daughter, who's 4, loves it. My daughter knows that I'm a stamp collector, and she has her own it's a little album with postcards and stuff in it. And she's like, "Do you want to see my stamp collection?" And she's only 4, but she gets excited about fun mail that comes to the house. And so I think there's really a lot to be said about that, you know, about sending out fun mail to people who maybe aren't on the computer or, you know, able to connect through social media.
Right. And again, I have another comment from Colin, who does not have a microphone. He says, small point to think about starting collectors as young kids. When I was a kid, I soaked stamps off of envelopes. Today, USPS self-adhesives don't help the situation. I think it's a factor of a small one. Also, much less stamp mail coming into the mailbox, competing with assorted social media, email, and you know, of course, just you know, the Pitney Bowes, you know, stamping, not stamps, kind of gets in the way of things.
Yeah. Yes. And I've read a lot about that. It's always the permanent postage. It's just printed right on the envelope. So it's it's unusual to see any kind of mail sometimes come in, unless, I think somebody else mentioned, unless you're swapping or you're getting an order in from a stamp vendor.
Right. Richard, let me unmute your microphone so you can make the comment that you just put in the chat. Richard?
You can even combine kind of modern topical themes with traditional subjects of philately. For example, looking at women's roles in engraving stamps or designing or printing them. The same with Black and Asian artists. You could, I mean, there's a whole Black history, Asian history, feminist history behind the creation and production of stamps. Like so, I collect stamps from around the world, looking at how women commission, design, engrave and print stamps, and you could do that for a range of formats and then compare design techniques with photogravure or lithographic printed stamps with recessing, you know, so you can combine the two very, very easily.
Yes. Yes, I agree. And I think when I was first sort of developing my thesis topic, that was sort of more, I was going into a lot of different directions because there's so many directions you can go in with it. And that was one of the directions I was interested in. But then when I realized the numbers, when I got the numbers for the demographics, that's when I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to focus on. And I just had to sort of stay in my lane. And now when I start to develop my pieces, and even in part of my thesis proposal, which is sort of the back end, you know, the academic part of it. So the faculty and staff at my university are reading that. I did include some of that information regarding women in the history of the process of stamps. But as far as, you know, moving forward and further, I'm really trying to work with this connecting and trying to seek women who are interested and how can we connect them.
Here's an interesting thing, and I've opened Tom Bowman's mic, and he can comment on this further. But I remember that how I got involved as a kid was I read comic books, bought comic books, and in the back of a comic book one time there was an ad from Mystic Stamps, and it was one of these things, you know. We'll sell you a bag full of stamps for probably 50 cents. Tom, is that how you started?
10 cents, my friend, 10 cents.
Well, maybe.
Well, yeah, that, you know, like you said, Parade magazine used to do it. Grit, I don't know how many people remember Grit.
Mm-hmm.
That was a national newspaper from Williamsport. You'd see those ads in the back. Now,
right.
you know, it's a thing of the past. Even my parents were smokers, Matchbox in the back of a match pack. You'd see the ad first.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess I could speak a little bit about this now, being on, working for the APS. I think there's one thing that we're trying to take steps on, and hopefully some of the dealers will go along with this. It's advertising on digital. There's not honestly been a lot of it. I'm not sure if all dealers are not understand the need to advertise on digital as being a way to engage the new audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing what these digital ads can do, especially via social media and the targeting that they can achieve.
Right. And I will admit, I mean, we are working on ways on our website to bring more opportunities to people to advertise in that way. It's just another possibility for to get some eyeballs, and perhaps some of the younger people and different demographic groups interested. Now, it might not be 10 cents for a bag like Tom mentioned back in the day. It might not be the quarter or 50 cents that I mentioned, but who knows? I mean, $1 goes a long way to get a kid a bag of stamps and perhaps be interested in that. Also, I think you're aware that we have a number of programs on our website under education. We have a Stamp Teach program that has some engaging content for just about anyone who who might be interested in stamp collecting.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyone else have any comments? Heidi brings out and always willing to do a sales pitch for the APS. A dollar goes a long way in APS with our Mighty Buck program to help us advance our programs and our mission. So all of you, if you're not helping in that way for the APS, please consider so. Anyone else? I'll open up Scott's microphone for a second here. Scott, you want to join us?
My constant refrain, especially for collectors, is to remember that when you were younger, the idea of having an older member of your family show you something that was, for lack of a better word, cool, and you would buy it, is perfectly believable. Today, it would be the exact opposite of that. And one of the things that I try to remind people is, how we engage young people today is wholly different. It's not that they're distracted by their phones or that they're more interested in whatever's on the internet. They're engaging in a much different way. Stamps out of context mean nothing, but the graphic design can be appealing to them. The backstory, the history can be appealing to them in a way that didn't necessarily matter when you were young. I mean, just the idea that you could explore the world through stamps in the 1950s or the 1960s, and even when I was growing up in the 70s and the 80s, had a lot of strength to it. But today, I could pull a map up in 5 seconds on my phone. And so, I don't really need to know a whole lot. I was having this conversation with someone yesterday about the difference between Myanmar and Burma. And there's a substantive difference to what you call it based on whether or not the governments recognize that or not. But a stamp isn't going to tell you those things. So there are different ways to really engage people today. And I really encourage people to open their minds a little bit more about how they're representing the stamps and how they represent their hobby. Once you get them hooked, the fundamentals and the basics matter a lot more, but getting them hooked is just much different today. The bait on the hook is different. So just keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to open up Debbie Hathaway's microphone. She, I noticed in her screenshot, she is going through the March issue of the AP. Debbie, you may have to do it yourself. I'm trying to unmute you, but for some reason I'm not able to do that.
Wait a minute.
There you go. We got you. Hold that magazine up. There you go. What was your comment?
I'm reading Stacy's article here, and how do you participate in your chain cards? Are you just can I contact you to get on a chain card with you?
Yeah, if you want to, we can try and organize that.
That'd be great.
I actually have 2 friends. If we could do it, we could do a US only. And I have two friends who would probably love to join as well. They're both in the US.
Right.
So,
yeah. My husband put my email in here.
Okay.
In the chat.
Yeah, once it comes through.
I just opened Eliza Watson's microphone. Are you in on this, Eliza?
I'm totally in.
We'll have to, Stacy, would you like to share your email address, or if not, I can make the connections.
I think Debbie, I think you said you're going to put it in your email in the chat here, and I can reach out to you.
My husband's typing it now.
Okay,
Good.
I'll copy that and I'll reach out to you.
Eliza, can you do the same?
Okay, we can start. We can figure out what theme we're going to do.
Cool.
How about
Bassett?
And Stacy has my information, so.
Elisa, she is one of the 2 friends I was speaking about.
Oh, okay. So, Elisa, have you already participated in this?
I have, and
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I only know about chain cards because of Stacy and her sister Jen. So
Right.
my dad was a stamp collector. He gave me his collection. I collected as a kid. And then Stacy was, she talked to me about what she was doing for graduate school, and then talked to me about chain cards, and I was like, hey, I've been collecting stamps my whole life, just kind of secretly, and I have them like weirdly stashed all through my house. And she's inspired me to not only organize my stamps, but then now participate in chain cards. And so I have done a bunch, and I really, really enjoy them. I'm often participating with Stacy in them, and sometimes using new stamps, sometimes using some vintage stamps that my dad gave me. And so yeah, you can ask her, I'm always in for a chain card.
Great. Well, maybe you might be interested in membership in the American Philatelic Society.
I definitely need to. It's on my list.
Well, good. That's great. The more the merrier.
The more the merrier. And you get an awesome magazine every single month. Awesome.
I don't know how I haven't done this already.
Well, here's the opportunity. That's great. We keep on getting members through these chats. It also makes it very worthwhile. Anyone else have any other comments for us?
Well, I do want to say, I think these chats are so great, and I know they're sort of inspired by a confusing, chaotic time. But I think one of the things, especially that I've heard about from women, is connecting and wanting to feel like they can connect with other women. And I think these chats are just a great way to connect people who all enjoy the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to talk with and see people, it's really, really great.
Well, let me, Scott reminded me, and so I'll bring this up on my screen share. We are launching a special membership for people under 30. So for collectors under 30, you can become a digital subscriber of the Society for $25. You do not get a physical copy of the magazine. You're able to access it through our website, but you get all of the other things that are available for a digital for an APS member. So
that's great.
So this is an opportunity for those who are younger to get interested. Of course, we have other programs for younger kids that are different, but this is for those adults who may be interested early on in getting interested in the society and stamp collecting, and help them along the way. So if you see the story online today, it's posted online at stamps.org. Please pass it along to people in that age group that may be interested in starting up or refreshing their interest in stamp collecting.
That's great.
Let's see if we have anybody else. I think it sounds like we're a wrap. This is a really great conversation. I really appreciate Stacy for your participation, and for everyone who has helped out today with the conversation. It was a good one. So thank you very much. We'll have more stamp chats tomorrow. Take a look at stamps.org for the schedule, and I hope everyone has a really great day.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for asking me to be a part of this. I really enjoyed it.
And this will be posted on YouTube probably later today for you to share with others. So the link will be on our website, and I'll send it to you, Stacy, in particular. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.